Yonder is a wonderful development. It has all you'd need and all you'd want. This house is forever.
Vivarium is the perfect blend of horror and science fiction.
There must be some way out of here. Everywhere has a way out.
It's about a hell made out of the aspiration of suburban life.
They really created an entirely fictitious world. Everything about it is a bit off and increasingly terrifying.
The film has such originality in terms of humor and terror.
Imogen and Jesse created great interplay between them.
We're all working towards the one vision, and they achieve it so successfully.
The idea that appeals to me about certain types of science fiction is an ordinary setting made threatening and unusual. And in Ireland, because of the magic of economics, there was lots of houses left empty.
Banks were giving out 100% mortgages to people who buy these places that are totally overvalued in the middle of nowhere and end up trapped there financially, emotionally, existentially.
And that influenced Foxes, which was the short film we made before this one.
You even listening to me?
The last time I listened to you, we bought this house.
Foxes has this young couple who are in these housing developments, and as nature is kind of reclaiming the place, the character Ellen is kind of called into a twilight world by these foxes. So there were themes and ideas that we were kind of touching on in the short film that we weren't quite finished with, really. And also in making the film, we were kind of opening other doors. So we started working on something set in the same story world, in a way, and sort of asking ourselves the question of what would happen if this place went on forever? What would happen if it was more of a sci-fi in tradition of a sort of Twilight Zone?
That idea grew to the idea of a housing estate that goes on into infinity. And two people get trapped, and you watch the terrible consequence of it.
Who did that to the poor baby birds?
I don't know. Maybe it was a cuckoo?
Around the same time, I remember watching this documentary on the life cycle of the European cuckoo, and cuckoos essentially have this weird symbiotic relationship with small birds, like a reed warbler, for example. It mimics the sound of the reed warblers, so the reed warblers are kind of confused, and their instinct is to feed it. So they almost kill themselves, both mother and father, feeding this little cuckoo chick, and it grows really fast. And when it's fully grown, it just flies off.
We were talking about things like another race, Homo sapiens and Homo erectus, and that's perhaps what they were, and that they were a parasitic species. And they figured out we will raise their young like a cuckoo, and then that cuckoo can go out and continue their cycle.
I know what you guys are thinking. Suburbia. But there's more to Yonder than what you see in these images.
Where's it located?
Near enough. And far enough.
It's about two people who set out in life to have the perfect dream, to have the perfect house, to have the perfect marriage, to have everything the way we all expect it to be. And it's basically the worst nightmare that could possibly happen when you set out on that path.
It's about people achieving that sort of materialistic dream, but losing their freedom as a price to pay for it.
This movie in some way serves as like this kind of horror version of a cautionary tale about checking off all the boxes of adulthood.
The movie's reminiscent of the 60s, 70s, even 80s sci-fi that was more concerned with exploring socio-political themes through genre. I was always a fan of that with like things like The Twilight Zone and David Cronenberg. Things that were talking about something important, but through an entertaining genre lens.
Science fiction sometimes comes at the expense of a good character, and this, I thought, just struck that balance so perfectly. There are great characters in this, even though it has this unusual kind of premise.
Hey there, little lady. Come a little closer. Come on, Mr. Tree wants to get to know you. Ah, my bark. Ah. Hey.
Hi.
So, how am I at the tree game?
Yeah, you're pretty mediocre.
That's good. Gemma and Tom have chemistry and relate to each other and enjoy each other's company. The movie is designed to show you characters that are familiar, that are accessible, and then put them in this crazy situation, so that as the movie becomes increasingly unhinged, you're still rooting for these people to make it out of this world.
The characters of Tom and Gemma started out as just a young couple looking for a home, people you could feel for. And this is a cruelty that's delivered to them. They don't deserve it, but that's what happens to them.
Hello?
It's a horror film about a trap, and you watch the terrible consequence of it.
What's that noise? Can anybody hear it?
Wind.
Wind.
Gemma is a teacher, so she works with children.
What are you, dog?
We already told you what a dog is.
Woof, woof, woof.
Yes, woof, woof, woof.
With the introduction of the little boy, he sort of manipulates Gemma's character into becoming the mother.
Are you overwhelmed again, Mother?
I am not your mother.
One of the things attracted Imogen to the role was the idea of motherhood being forced upon a female character that might not necessarily want to have children or like the idea of motherhood. It's not like she's like an aggressive mother who really hates the child, but it's not her child. He's not human, and he is acting like she's adopted him, even though she didn't agree to any of this, much like the idea of a social contract. It's something that she hadn't signed, yet it's pushed upon her. Imogen, she has a kind of lovely warmth to her that playing a school teacher comes across really well, because she's quite youthful, and there's something beautiful about seeing that youthful optimism be crushed by this very oppressive kind of environment. Imogen's so mesmerizing, especially in her close-ups and in her emotional range. When she needs to do scenes that are heartbreaking, she really makes that real for herself, because she is really going there. And it takes a while, you know, when you say cut, she has to recover because she's really gone somewhere to make it real for herself.
Imogen is just like exactly what you would want in a scene partner. She takes it seriously and also really giving, so she'll allow another actor to excel. My character thinks he married up, that she was like kind of too good for him, and he feels like really lucky to be around her. So acting with somebody like Imogen, who is confident and has like a really strong presence, has been great, because she's got a very easy person to adore.
Tom! Stop!
Gemma, please, just let me dig, okay? This is something that I could do. Please, just let me do this.
Tom is a guy who just tries to keep it all together. He's a landscape gardener.
He's at one with the earth. He spends his time doctoring trees. And so this new world for him is like the worst kind of hellscape, because it's entirely artificial.
Tom was originally written as slightly more aggressive, a bit more of a big alpha male character, and gradually became softer as Jesse was able to sort of bring a warmth and personality and charm and sense of humor to the character. He knew that this film was really more about normal people struggling in extraordinary environments.
The more that the world that we're in becomes surreal and oppressive, the more natural we have to be as actors to contrast this increasingly crazy world. And the more grounded you are in a heightened situation, the more the movie works.
Did you see the boy?
No.
He's gone missing.
Yeah, so have we.
Jesse and Imogen, where he's probably a little bit more formal and she's a little bit more wild. So working with the two of them together was great, because there's contrast between them and great interplay between them. One of the things with his character was to be kind of funny and full of life at the beginning, and Jesse's great with that. He's into comedy and he's a very funny guy in general. So there'd be a big contrast when they break apart towards the middle of the movie.
What are you doing?
What was important really was his downfall and his subtly making the characters separate through small changes in the dynamics of their relationship. So it was like a dance in a way that had to feel in love, and like they'd known each other for a long time, and they're very optimistic and jokey and fun. And then this kind of domesticity made them adopt these roles, these kind of gender roles, which sort of pushed upon them with the introduction of the little boy.
What's a dream?
It's like all sorts of moving pictures in your mind, but no one else can see them.
I've never had a dream.
Close your eyes and try.
The little boy appears at the beginning of the second act of the movie. He draws out Gemma's maternal instincts to make her look after him, because that's what his species do, essentially, like a cuckoo. They find a surrogate.
He's not a real boy. He's presented almost like a little robot boy. And they will be released if they raise him. And of course, it's complete torture. They can't even relate to him or love him, really.
The boy is played by an Irish actor called Senan Jennings, who's only 7. He has this quite angelic face that was described in the scripts as being kind of like a perfect doll, little Pinocchio boy. Woof, woof, woof!
Is there anyone else you can do? Someone you met today? Pretend to be that person.
I had showed Imogen and Jesse a little video and audition in my phone. Senan did this scene where his neck swells up and his eyes roll back. He actually really did that while auditioning, and it made this horrible shrieking sound. They were like, wow, this kid's amazing. Where the hell did you find him?
I'll be doing this special effects where my throat is expanding and all that screaming. Quite a lot of the times I just lost my breath, and sometimes I had to take a little breath and then continue screaming. That was very difficult.
Once we cast him, he actually kind of went method on it, and you know, his mum was telling me he was going around supermarkets, you know, they'd be doing the shopping and he'd be looking at other people and copying their mannerisms.
The character is just so unique, so different. At first, I think they might think of him like just a normal lost soul, but then once my goiter sprang, they're all gonna know that what is this kid? He's not human. What is he?
That boy is always watching.
The boy is programmed to observe these two people, which is his whole world that he understands, and to watch them and learn from their behavior so that he can pass off as a human.
So I'm to blame? How is this my fault, Tom? I'm sorry, Jen. It's just this place is making me crazy.
It has no malice behind it. The boy wants a mother and the boy wants a father, but his ways of getting that are so wrong, and it becomes a question then of how much can you blame him if he's programmed this way. I play the older version of the boy, and I couldn't be luckier working off Senan. I've learned so much watching his portrayal of it, because he's got that threshold, just how inappropriate can he be and how otherworldly. I get a lot from just kind of watching him and seeing how that character might grow.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you mean that?
I was being polite.
Why are you being polite? Is it fear?
Probably.
Aina Hardwick has a kind of menacing calmness that also matched Jonathan Harris's character, but different, a different kind of intensity, which works well in the art of the film. That at that point of the film, things have got a lot darker and the levity has been slightly sucked out of it.
It was difficult at the start because your instincts are too human, are too kind of natural. You've got to make it so otherworldly. It has none of the same cultural references or ethics or morals or beliefs. So it was fun to play someone whose responses are completely inappropriate because they don't understand that human connection. It's been great to work with Lorcan to figure out where my character is on that scale of how human and how unnatural. He'll throw little bits at you to kind of play with. I think that's very important, especially with this character, because it's all like a game.
Well, that works around here, but I think we'll get you guys in a little further. So,
Lorcan Finnegan, he had a wonderful relationship with all of the cast, and he had a great rapport with them.
He cares about things that I care about, which is my character just yelled at his wife, so how is he feeling 3 scenes later? And he allows me to kind of integrate that emotion into that scene. And then he not only cares about stuff like that, but asks us to go further.
Actors always surprise me when they're performing a script. So it's like watching them and then nudging it in directions that you like it to be, or you feel that there's something in there that they've done that is really interesting that you'd like to see a little bit more of.
When you watch his movies, you think like, wow, this guy must be so intense and like brooding. And yet Lorcan is an incredibly funny person. And I always like happy when I meet people like that, because it means that they'll like allow for some levity in an otherwise kind of very moody piece. It makes the movie more accessible, and then when it throws you off, it's that much more unnerving.
These guys are anything from here.
Lorcan's a real visionary who can create this entire world and have it be visually arresting.
Welcome to Yonder.
His vision of Yonder, the housing estate within the film, is very unique.
The colours are just a little bit bright, and the lines are a bit too straight.
Be like a fever dream where things are happening for some kind of like abstracted, irrational reason, but it all seems of a piece. A world that's kind of truly terrifying.
Most of the film is set in a world that doesn't actually exist. So it was always a concern while we were working on the script, how were we going to do this?
We wanted to do the whole film in a world that was very unusual. We decided to film all of the exteriors indoors.
When we filmed the exterior scenes of the house, they built like 3 houses on a street that were physically to scale. But the movie is, of course, supposed to take place in an almost continuous loop of an infinite number of these kind of houses.
So we built a set of 3 houses in a warehouse in Belgium with blue screen on either end. For VFX post-work, they did a lot of exterior Yonder set extensions, removing the blue screen, adding in the 2D plate work for set extensions. They did use a 3D LiDAR scan of the set for some of the shots. For example, the looking out over the rooftops as the camera jibs up, reveal the scale of Yonder.
Do you see that cloud? What's that cloud in the shape of?
A cloud?
Yes. All the clouds here are shaped like clouds.
We needed the clouds to be able to react to light sources, even though they were going to look surreal. So they were made as CG elements, and then there were a variety of lighting conditions were rendered that then the clouds could be comped into all sorts of shots. It's a really tricky balance between this sort of dreamlike falseness and a sort of tangibility.
Tom, what do you see?
Hey, maybe we should follow the sun. Whatever it takes, all right? We're gonna get out of here.
The characters were stuck in a very artificial, strange environment. So having Imogen and Jesse on set and me in this place that is fake actually probably added to the story.
Filming movies on sound stages can feel like oppressive because they're creating fake daylight and you don't go outside between setups and stuff. So actually filming on a soundstage for this movie, which we did for 90% of this movie, ended up having some of the effect that Yonder would have on the characters, of feeling like you didn't see any daylight today, of feeling like you walked in a circle and all you saw was the same thing all day. And so actually in a kind of meta way, the experience of Yonder in some ways is kind of like filming in a soundstage.
The aesthetic and the color of the houses, which shows kind of minty green for that sort of slightly deathly, toxic color quality, but also it has a slightly institutional vibe to it as well, like hospitals and schools. In nature, it can give a sense of verdant, lush life and feel very, give you the sense of freedom. Whereas taken out of nature completely, it can have a kind of toxic quality. So it does have a psychological effect on the audience, but also on the actors and their characters. And when you're bouncing light off that, it bounces back this slightly green light onto their skin tones, which helps make them sort of look sick and weary.
All we wanted was a home.
Silly mother. You are home.
Vivarium is a story that I think we can all relate to. It's a shot through with a certain kind of uncomfortable truth that I think we'll all recognize when we see it.
It's a horror film about an aspect of the way we've chosen to live.
I think the film could be taken as a warning. It allows you to see the absurdity of the way a certain life is lived in order to be able to take an objective view on whether or not you want to become part of it. It can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, and that's what I like about sci-fi films. You can come away from them and have your own version of what it meant to you.